Hi there. Once again, it is time for another episode of Unstoppable Mindset. Today, we get to meet Ross Lilley, or actually Reverent Ross Lilley. Ross has got a story to tell. He is not a person directly, as I recall, with a disability, but he has a son who is, and he has a long time interest in that. And there's a lot more to his story than that, and I'm not going to give it away. So, Ross, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. How are you?
Thank you, Michael. Great. Thank you. We were just in a snowstorm and we got here just in time.
Right. And I was just going to say, if people haven't figured it out by now, we record these podcasts and sometimes there's a little bit of a delay before they get up just because we do have some backlogs. And in Ross's case, we are taping, my gosh, you can tell how old I am. We are recording this episode on January 23rd, 2023. And for us, the temperature got down to 26 degrees here in Victorville, and you have a snowstorm.
Oh my. Wow. Yeah, I work with people that are all younger than me, pretty much. And so I say tape all the time. We put out a lot of videos for our training sessions, and they're all wondering what to tape is.
I remember when we lived in New Jersey and I worked in New York at the World Trade Center, we often saw, among other things, Warner Wolf on, I think it was Channel 2 in New York. And he always said, let's go to the videotape. Well, they weren't videotaping back by that time. Well, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell me about you kind of growing up and just sort of how things got started and all that.
Sure. I grew up in New Jersey, and I remember Warner Wolf.
Yeah.
And I'm old too now, but let me see. I was, if we're going back that far, I always had an interest in inclusion, I guess I would say. And I used to coach and create things where people could get involved. A lot of sports stuff, I remember, even growing up, and always was kind of the one who was like, let's get a game going and getting people going. And so one of the sports I really loved was windsurfing. I got to do that when I was in high school. And this first paycheck I ever got actually was to buy a windsurfer. And anyways, fast forward a little bit, I went to, for no good reason, I went to seminary to become a minister. And
there must have been a reason.
Yeah, there is. When you go to seminary, everybody, you sit with your classmates in a circle, and they all talk about their call, the so-called call, and some of these stories go on and on and on, and people tugging and God pulling and all that kind of stuff. And mine was just, it just sort of hit me that I probably should go to. Everybody told me I'd be a good minister and I should go, and I just somehow said, okay, I gave in to this process, but there was no hit on the head kind of experience like a lot of these other folks. But anyways, my mentors all taught me that good religion, like good life, was inclusive, and that if everybody couldn't come, it wasn't maybe worth taking the ride.
So what got you started down that road of the whole concept of inclusion?
Well, I think it was just something in me, and then it resonated when I had these mentors who were similarly minded, like-minded, and especially, when I could make it some of the hallmark of ministry, it seemed like I was in the right place. And so ministry was going that way, and at the same time I was windsurfing, and that was kind of at odds with what I believe, because it's a pretty exclusive sport. And so I devoted all my spare time to try to make the sport of windsurfing accessible to people of all abilities. You look like you have something to say.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I started just going up to people on the beach and saying, you look like you have a disability, want to go windsurfing, which is really nice. No one ever slapped me, but
well, there you go.
They should have. And so I used to take people with kind of just we'll say light ambulation issues out windsurfing and figure out ways to make it more accessible. And even I made some adaptations, which it turned out I was pretty good at. And then my son was born in 1986 with cerebral palsy, and spastic quadriplegia or tetraplegia, and he became kind of a that's where the rubber would hit the road, I guess, is if I really believe this about inclusion, I would make a choice there. My wife and I made a choice that everything that we would do, we were going to believe that he could do as well.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that we thought were good in our lives, we're going to make a choice that we're going to ram it down his throat that these things were going to be good for him too. So for good or for bad, he was born into the right or wrong family, and he became this test pilot for a lot of the things we do. And anyways, we started to do windsurf marathons, and I found that based on the fact that I found that this sport really excited him to stand, where he couldn't stand in a stander for more than 10 minutes. He could stand leaning against me, and we could go for really long distances. And some of these windsurf marathons we did, he was 7-8 years old, and we're going a mile out into Cape Cod Bay and back. We did one which was memorable. Over 3 hours was 10 miles, and that caught the attention of like the Globe and Good Morning America and things like this, and that's how we started our program in proper.
So you talk about inclusion, and I don't hear you using the word diversity. How come?
How come? I go again on that one?
You call it inclusion, and I don't hear you using the word diversity. Why inclusion and not diversity?
Oh gosh, I guess they're pretty similar to me. Is there? I don't know if there's a huge difference in my mind.
Well, there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But typically, diversity doesn't include disabilities in the discussion, which is why I react well to inclusion, because some of us who talk about it don't let people ever get by with saying, well, we're inclusive, but we don't deal with disabilities yet. Well, then you're not inclusive. You can't. Yeah. The word diversity has been warped, it seems to me, and I've said that a number of times on the podcast. So I love it when you are using the word inclusion and inclusive, because that's really what it should be about. And diversity should be as well, but it's not. Very rarely do you ever hear disabilities included in that.
Yeah, I strongly agree. In our program, we have a lot of when we're going for grants, a lot of people are talking about diversity and how diverse we are, and when they want to go along racial lines or whatever, I'm always surprised. Like, we're we're sort of inclusive. It just doesn't occur to me that would be our main criteria compared to how we're including so many people of so many abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I always think about inclusion. It's funny.
So how did you end up in Massachusetts from New Jersey? Although it's not that far of a ride, it is still another state, and it's a little ways away.
Wow, that's funny. I figure my story is so boring. I got out of college, and I wanted to be a musician, although my degree was in economics and a minor in music. And my brother was selling stereos up in Boston, and I came up here just to get a job, and that's how I got up here. And I thought I'd also find it, and I thought there was a pretty good musical community up in Boston. I thought I'd get into that. I studied for 10 years with the principal percussionist in the New York Philharmonic, and I thought I could make a go of it as a drummer, as a jazz drummer, but I was wrong.
Didn't work out, huh?
Oh, no.
Well, then you ended up in the ministry along the way.
Yeah, so I guess
actually going into the ministry.
Yeah, I guess that back to that story there, when I was selling stereos and when dreaming about music, the people who said, everybody who knows you should be a minister, but you, Ross, were people who were also in ministry. And they were great to steer me into it. It was a good idea.
So are you at a church now?
No, I left in 2001 to do this full time. Before the pandemic, we had 2,000 people coming to the program, each year to do adaptive sport and training. And even before that, when we were 400, it was pretty much a full-time job while I'm trying to be at a church as well. So I had to make a choice. The church life is a good one, but it's tough. And when I was at a great church, but it's tough. And if you do it, some people do it so they take it in a professional approach, more professional than I would take in the strict sense of the word, so they could put it aside at night and kind of decompress and be away from the church. I couldn't. I took everything in and felt it for like everybody, and it just kind of wears on you after a while.
Yeah. Well, and you've kind of gone in a different direction and do sort of the same thing, but you're applying all of it to sports, adaptive sports, and disabilities, and so on. So how do you take your son windsurfing? How does all that work?
Well, now he's 36 and he's a pretty big guy. So what I used to do, where I could just pick up with one hand, doesn't necessarily work. So when we go windsurf now, I'll use a stander or a railing stander and things like that on the board, and I might have someone on the board with me. We have lots of different rigs that we've created, and while my focus won't be necessarily on the distances we did before, but more of him being able to hold a sail on his own, with me just holding the mast of the sail and things like that. So it's
you're on the same board.
Yeah, right. If you and I were to go out windsurfing, I would put you on a similar board with two sails. You could be standing or seated to get comfortable with the sail, and I could be in front of you on a second sail, and I could help control your sail.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you got better, I would go to less stable boards, and you would focus on, you could then focus on balance as you had mastered your sail technique. Right.
The whole idea is that you have boards, they have sails, and that's how you move.
Right. Yeah, faster, in all of our sports, anything we do, a general rule is the faster you move, the more stable you are. Once you get going, when you're stable, then you can do a lot more. If you're just sitting there getting ready to go, it's pretty wobbly.
Yeah, I bet. Sort of like a little different, sort of like the whole concept of a gyroscope. When you spin it fast, it keeps you stable.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Well, that's pretty cool. So you are able to do it. Well, and so do you still do a lot of windsurfing with him?
I do more windsurfing with it's funny, you would think I would do a lot, but I do more teaching of other folks in our program.
What does he do?
Say again?
What does he do?
Josh? On those days, he might come to the beach and help us out, or he might go to a program. But Josh does a lot. And, our sports in the summer, the way we operate is the sports in the summer are designed for you or your family member to see themselves as athletes, as viable athletes, and then to use that as incentive to train for higher function. And the sports in the summer we have are windsurfing and Hawaiian outrigger canoeing, stand-up paddling, kayaking, and we also have traditional sports like tennis and soccer and football that we also apply these inclusive game systems to. And Josh, more times than not, if Josh is at our site and I'm working, Josh will be a part of a crew in an outrigger canoe. And he has a fairly functional right hand, so we have all sorts of adaptations where we might use a ace wrap to keep his left hand on his bent paddle or something like that, and you get a sense of two hands going. But if he comes down, he's usually paddling more than anything now.
Does he work? Does he have a job, or is this the program kind of what he does?
It's kind of a day program, a day hab program. He lives with us though, and yeah. And
well, now, does your wife windsurf?
She did, and she doesn't really now. We do a sports camp in Florida every year, and she comes out and comes out and help, and she's actually pretty skilled at it. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. What does she do? Go ahead.
What is she? She's she actually works with us right now. She's an interior designer, and but she left that to work for us.
Mm.
And
So-
we also, it takes a lot to raise a kid with a disability and to keep me going. So I know which side my bread is buttered on.
Good move on your part.
Yeah, she does a lot though. She helps teach with us, and she helps train with us as well whenever she can.
We were a 2 disabilities family. My wife was in a chair her whole life.
Yeah.
Was a T3 para, but she passed away in November. So now it is me and a dog and a cat. And, it's fun. I miss her and so on. But at the same time, we do have a lot of fun, and the dog and the cat keep me honest.
Wow. It's still fresh. That is every day, I'm sure, for the rest of your life, right?
Oh, it will be. We were 15 days shy of being married 40 years.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So it is one of those things that will be with us. But as I tell people, the spirit just goes faster than the body sometimes. And that's what happened here.
The spirit goes faster than the body.
Yeah. The spirit moves faster.
Oh, I wish I was preaching now. I would use this. This is
well,
and I'd have you do an explication of it for me. Wow.
There you go.
That's terrific.
Well, we function, we continue. But tell me, do you do sports in the winter as well, or what do you do in the winter?
So today we have a special. So we're good at adaptations and inventions, and we've discovered a lot of our athletes who are training more than anything wanted to could walk on a treadmill with assistance, and so we've invented a device. It's a gait training device that will probably sell for like $5,000. And we have a gym in which we specialize in doing gait training with people. So we do a lot of that. And we also go to schools and we train people in Boston Public Schools and some other schools. And we do it's a sport-based program, and it's also one that we can do online. So, and we do tennis. We do tennis and cycling when the weather is good for cycling, but tennis all year as well. Yep.
Cycling, probably not right now.
Well, if it's above 45 degrees, we go out.
Well, yeah, but
not today.
Not today. That's what I mean. The snow falleth. And so as a result, not a good time. But yeah, I hear you. So do you have any distinctions or differences regarding kinds of disabilities, or do you care? Or nope. Is a disability is a disability as far as it goes?
It certainly is. We would take, we'll take anyone of any disability from ages like 5 up to 100. And if we can't accommodate them, we'll create something so we can. So we've built arm braces, airplane braces for people with limb differences. We've created a lot of seating, for particular people to do any of our sports. A lot of stuff, and our intent is to include anybody, especially people who have no other place where they can participate in these kind of sports.
So that probably gets to be, I won't say a challenge because it is, but it does get to be an issue that you get to be able to deal with people with neurodivergent issues as well. So you can deal with autistic or people who have Down syndrome and so on, and you're just as welcoming to do that as you do people with physical disabilities like you're talking about. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and the variety really makes it interesting. And we love the challenge, especially if everybody's different in their own way. And so no generalizations apply. And if we don't expect something miraculous to happen in a session, we're missing the point. Every session we find something that's different, and every session we find something where people surprise us.
So I assume things sort of dropped off a little bit when the pandemic hit.
Big time. Yeah. Well, we never stopped. We created an online program for our year-round athletes and for school program, and that was kind of cool because we made this unique system where we have 6 variations of high-intensity interval training exercises, and it was like in the can, ready to go, and we put it right in within a week of the pandemic and the onset of that, and people being in shutdown. We had that online and going with people. It's really cool.
How'd that work out?
Quite well. We're using it now. Still, we have over close to 80 exercises with these progressions, and then we put together combinations of the exercises and put it live for a lot of our classes, and for adults as well.
Do you find that people who participate in the summer continue to stay with the program and will work in the winter, or
yes,
same clients and so on?
Right.
Which is cool. How many people are part of the program now?
Well, last summer, I think we had, again, our high point was about 2,000. Now we're about 1,200, I think. And so we, in the summer, we have a camp we're including kids into a camp of junior high age kids. And then we have a program with the Flutie Foundation for kids on the autism spectrum. And then we have our own site where we have anybody and anyone who wants to come out. So there's a bunch of teams in several sites in the summer, and then from those, they participate in our year-round programs. Let me see, probably about half participate in the year-round programs. We have a soccer and conditioning program as well in the winter.
Boys, girls, men, women, everyone.
Yeah,
which is so cool. Well, how do you do soccer? How does that work?
Let me see. We have we created these game systems where everybody is vital to the system, and you have anybody of any ability has to meet certain requirements in the game for people to go on. So if Lice would say, if you score and then you can't score again until the rest of our team scores, or for our team for any of our points to count, everybody on the team has to at least have an assist or a block. So there's all these, and then there's certain goals that they shoot at. There's some that are easier to get than others. So there's all these accommodations we make depending on who's playing, so that everybody can be vital to their team, and everybody's working towards that. And it's designed so everybody of every ability is challenged to their utmost as well.
May not be using the right word, but soccer is sort of a ferocious, or certainly a hard-hitting, fast sport. In general, how does that work when you're dealing with people with disabilities and a lot of different skill sets and so on? Do the people still tend to play as ferociously as they can?
They do and they don't. So there's things. We have an inappropriate challenge rule, where we try to put like abilities against each other. And the people that have the best so-called able-bodied players are working really hard to get balls to people, to make assists or to involve them. And then the people maybe who have ambulation issues are doing their best to get into a position, even if it makes them going, for 5 minutes getting down the length of the field to get there. That's their goal, to get in a position where they might have a chance at a goal or to get back to defend. So there's things we invent for everybody that make them slow this game down for them, without making anybody really slow down that much. So,
do you find challenges of getting totally ambulatory people, for example, to play well with people who may not be as ambulatory or work as well, moving around?
Yeah, it's that's the challenge, what we call is trying to find the perfect game, and it is a challenge, but it's a skill to play too. It's a skill to learn how to play with varying abilities at once. And we do, when we do this camp in Florida, that's our proving ground for this. And you live with this for a week, and people get very good at the game by about the second day.
So people grow accustomed to it and grow into it and all that.
Yeah. Our whole community is about getting out of the way of yourself. And so and trying to let something bigger come through yourself and something bigger come through each of these games.
Are you teaching people to be competitive, or is it more teaching people to to work together and have fun together? Or is it kind of a combination? Because a lot of the sports like soccer, like tennis, football, and so on are more competitive sports, and they're usually viewed as being very competitive. But is that the same way it comes out for you, or is it a little bit different in terms of mindsets?
It's funny. I don't, like in popular sport, I think great competitors aren't necessarily great people, right? They're just insecure about losing. And I think we all need to learn how to lose so we can learn to live with something that's bigger. But in ours, we do teach to be competitive, but in the end run, we want people also to have perspective about it. And the worst thing that could happen is where you have people come in who don't care. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to care, but it's even better if they compete with themselves more than anything else, mm-hmm. and drive for more function, drive for something that they've accomplished on their own. And even farther than that, it's great to be a part of a team and to feel like maybe for the first time in your life, you're valued on a team, right? And that you're not just a throwaway, and that people aren't condescending to you when you're on the field of play. We have, as example, we have a friend of ours, one of our athletes was on ESPN for playing, he has cerebral palsy and some, and the ambulation was a little slower than most folks, and they put him into a high school football game, right? And so one play they gave, the other team was in on it, they gave him the ball and they let him run, and he eventually ran out of bounds. And I almost think that kid should have been tackled, that maybe there's an art to tackling him, but people deserve the dignity of failure. They deserve to be treated with some seriousness, and that their accomplishments aren't something where, there's all these videos of little league games where some kid hits with cerebral palsy and is going around the bases while people falling down for the ball and all this stuff. Throw a kid out every now and then. Make them work for accomplishment. Make them understand what it's like. That what they truly appreciate what they've done. If I went even further, it's like races. We have races, and we like people in the races to do something that they have to train for. If someone doesn't train for it, it's just, it's not that compelling. And people on the outside need to see people with disabilities training and being real true athletes. So we like things where people train for it and people accomplish something. That makes sense?
It does. It absolutely makes sense, because we find so many people who behave exactly as you're describing. Oh, it's great that he was able to run 20 or 30 yards. Wasn't that wonderful that he had the ball? But by the same token, we're not really dealing with what's going on. And who's the one that really comes out feeling good about that? Well, I suppose that there is some truth to the fact that the person involved is excited that they had the ball, but the people are really doing it for themselves so that they can feel good, that they can feel superior, rather than, as you said, tackling somebody after a while. By the way, there's nothing wrong with tackling somebody rather than them running out of bounds. Even if they go 15 yards and then you tackle them, that says something too. And you're right, there's an art to tackling. It's all about changing, in a sense, the definition of winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I never heard about. I think that's a great concept too, about redefining winning.
There's nothing wrong with winning and being competitive, but if you have to win, then are you really winning?
Oh, that's even better. Yes, we are very much on the same page. Yeah.
And the fact is that I realize that with most modern sports, it's all about winning. But is it really, or should it really be something to think about?
So you have thought about this. You are into it. Are you a big sports fan yourself?
I listen to sports more than anything else, but I grew up with some really great sports announcers to be my teachers, as it were, listening to them and just their philosophies of dealing with the game. I mean, baseball, you can't do better than having Vin Scully describe the games and just all the things that he talked about. And I know that he understood winning, and he always wanted I'm sure the Dodgers to be the victorious team. But the way he announced games, no matter who won, it was really all about the game, which is what it ought to be.
Wow. Is he still alive, or did he pass?
No, he passed away last year.
Yeah, this year, yeah.
Yeah. He retired at the end of, I think, 2016 and then passed away last year.
That's well put, and I'm glad you put time to think about that. I think about it all the time as well, and I always wonder if I'm the only one. Certainly our staff thinks about it, and especially when we're putting game systems together.
What's your favorite? Go ahead.
My favorite.
Your favorite sport to teach?
I guess all of them, because like our game systems, if it's team sports, our game systems work across all the main team sports: football, basketball, and soccer, and even floor hockey. We work with some Boston Bruins on floor hockey, and we work with some of the New England Patriots on our training systems.
Wow.
And as long as people are moving, and we work with the Red Sox as well, but as long as they're moving for a prolonged period of time, if the sport gets them going like that, I like it.
Yeah.
Anything that drives that. It's not so much the sport as to me as much as people participating in it and getting into shape, and belonging to something.
How have the professional athletes been in terms of working with you and so on, and how does all that work out?
Pretty good. Who's good? Somebody from your area, Jimmy Garoppolo, injured San Francisco 49ers quarterback. He came to about 3 of our clinics when he was with the Patriots. He and some other players really got it. They didn't come with any condescension, and they didn't settle for, they held the bar high for our athletes. It was pretty good. So I'm surprised at this. We've had other guys like Andrew Raycroft from the Bruins came out, and Terry Rozier, who's now with the Charlotte Hornets. He was with the Celtics. They came out and within minutes, I thought they felt pretty comfortable with the population. I thought they would be talking down to him, but they were always really good.
That's really pretty cool. And nothing like having some of those folks coming out and teaching, because you're getting taught by the best in the business. Right.
Yeah. And also, it's nice when they're sort of humbled by what we do. That's always a nice gesture when they have done football clinics before and run them, and they defer to us. I think that's a nice recognition for us.
So how large is your staff?
We have in the summer just about 20 of us, but during the year we have just 3 of us full-time who are trainers, and we have other support staff. We also during the year have interns who are terrific. We use a lot from local universities.
Do you have or ever have many people with disabilities on the teaching staff?
That's a really good one. If it was during the year, yes, but on the water, we don't, mainly because of safety and needing to, if we need to jump in the water and rescue somebody, and we can only afford, 3 or 4 people on the team, we can't go rescue somebody with a disability. It's something we agonize with all the time because we're on the water. But we are not good in that regard, only because we have to decide who we're going to pay. We have limited resources, and we need everybody to be quote unquote able-bodied to help with rescues if need be.
Right. Well, I think of the possibility of people who happen to be blind, who might very well be able to help in rescuing. There are several centers around the country that have blind teachers teaching in a variety of environments, including taking students out to lakes and doing various things in the summer. And again, it's all a matter of looking and learning, but there you have someone who's a lot more ambulatory if they learn to listen and really are aware of what's going on around them.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good point. Yet I just don't have anybody in front of me like that. But I, in a way, I probably should be more proactive in seeking people like this in the least bit, because they can have other folks. I don't want to use the word inspire lightly, but they could help inspire other folks with the similar abilities to come out. Right.
Right.
I guess we're all wary of using the word inspire, but I still love the word.
Well, there's nothing wrong with inspire, again, if you're doing it for the right reason. As we were talking about earlier with the whole issue of running 30 yards and then running out of bounds, but not being willing to tackle someone. Who is it that's really being inspired as opposed to just feeling good? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with true inspiration, something that motivates someone to do more and feel better about themselves than they did and shoot for higher goals. So that's okay. I think that's what in part has to come from inspiration.
Well said.
And it's a process, but for you, what's the most rewarding part of what you do? You're certainly doing something that has to do a lot of things that I don't want to use the word make you feel good, but inspire you. But for you, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
When it works, when what we do works. And again, if I can, there's something that bigger than me that kind of is in this organization. Even though we my wife and I, my son and my daughter, were founders of this, we found that there's a culture that's developed in this that goes beyond us. And I love it to see when people remind me of some of the original tenets of how we started, or if I see some protocol or device or technique work with somebody when it shouldn't, I love that. It's sort of like we've worked for 12 years plus on this gait trainer. And when I see people's gait improve after a half hour on the machine, it's incredible to me. Or when I see, I'm not a really confident person outside of this, but I'm really confident what we can do with people on a windsurfer, or on a stand-up paddleboard in a canoe. And I know even when families say this won't work, I know that I can make certain things work. And to see that is really something. Or to see someone surprise me and show what they can do beyond what I ever expected. I love that.
Tell me about a real surprise, something that happened, or a person that came to the program and you didn't think necessarily they could do all that they ended up doing, and they really surprised you. I'd love to hear a story about that.
Well, I got a bunch, but they all start with my son, right? He's, by all rights, he would be, without what we do, he would be in a powered chair with contractures all day long. And now he can, because we have trained so much, I can walk with him just holding one hand. It's rigorous, but I can hold one hand and walk with him. So that's somebody, by definition, no functional use of either of his legs or his arms, and I can hold one hand and walk. So he, and the way that he did some of those marathons, some of that was the greatest athletic feats I ever have been a part of in my life. Other than that, we have people who are running now who had hemiparesis and were in coma, and then came out of this and worked with us and trained with us, and now can run and play in some of our games. Those guys are amazing. And then there's other people still who are up and using some of our equipment and training in keeping, in like this, like somebody I work with today, he has MS, cannot weight bear, but in our machine, he was up and standing and propelling this machine on the treadmill today all by himself. That's kind of incredible.
How does the machine work? What does it do?
what we've done is without a motor, but just using pressure on a treadmill and this unit that we've built off the back of it, this device grabs people at their lower leg, and there's a piston that's connected to essentially a rebuilt spin cycle. And we can determine how long their length of stride is going to be, how much hip and knee flexion or bend they're going to have. And then you put it in a uniform fashion on a treadmill for, half hour to an hour at a time. And we can pedal people through too. We can slow people's rate down or increase it. And it's emulating what a $400,000 device can do. And it works really well.
Have you ever looked into, or has anyone ever taken any of these and manufactured them and maybe did more mass producing of them?
We're doing that now. Actually, we're working with a manufacturer on that. Except the process is long and there's lots of parts to this. But yeah,
and you got to go through approvals to get the whole legal aspect of it addressed as well.
Well, we have our patent down and lots of other patents associated with it, and now we need to get FDA approval.
That was what I was going to ask you about, how the FDA figures into it all.
Well, it's a semi-medical exercise, so we're trying to navigate those waters, and I'm relying on one of our board members to work with me on it.
Well, it does sound really exciting to do and to see the things that are happening. And again, I think one of the most significant parts about this is that you're welcoming to everyone. Do you have any what we would call able-bodied people come to the program, or do they just come as staff, or do you ever welcome people without disabilities into the program as well?
All the time, yeah. Mostly into our games. So if someone wants to volunteer, or if they want to play, we'll put into like our Thursday night soccer program, or have play tennis with us, something like that. Yeah. Now we decided, I think you told me earlier, you're not actively playing a sport now.
Correct.
But if you could, what would it be?
Oh gosh. There are several I'd love to play, even if it's just to learn more about them. I've always been a baseball fan, so I'd love to do more with baseball. I'd love to learn more about football. I enjoy listening to football, although baseball has still always been my number one interest, but I'm spoiled, as I said before, by Vin Scully. But, I think that sports in general would be fun to experience no matter what it is, because there's so much of it that I don't know a lot about. And for me, playing it would be, as much as anything, a way to and a reason for learning about the sport.
So, I mean, you never did anything with a beep ball or anything like that?
Never really did anything with a beep ball. There wasn't a group around to do it with for me.
Wow. It's a riot. I've tried it. It's a riot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I thought it's ingenious. And
then there's the new one talking about soccer and so on, dodgeball.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know whether I want to be a person who just has to run around, drop on the ground, might get kicked in the head, and going after a ball. So,
well,
no, I think
soccer is amazing, right?
I know.
It
is
coaches directing you on the sides, like 3 versus 3.
Yeah.
That is an amazingly well-developed sport. That's incredible.
And basketball is fun.
Wow.
Of course, again, I'm spoiled. We had Chick Hearn out here. And when I lived in the East, the first time I lived in the East, I lived in Winthrop, Massachusetts. And of course, we had Johnny Most.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Let's
stop, drop, swish. Havlicek stole the ball. I have that record.
Wow, Winthrop. It's a good surfing beach at Winthrop.
Yeah. In Winthrop and Revere Beach and so on. Sure.
one of our programs looks at Revere at Winthrop, by the way, one of the islands where we have a program.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
So I keep up with sports. I've just never been very active in that regard. I was in the Boy Scouts, but we didn't do sports stuff other than hiking and camping, which I did. So that was okay.
You were a scout?
Yeah, I was an Eagle Scout.
Holy smokes. Really?
Well, you got to do something to keep functioning and active.
So being on the bestseller list or Eagle Scout, they're about the same, aren't they?
They're fun to do.
Holy smokes. And what was your project as an Eagle Scout?
Oh gosh, I was involved in doing some radio stuff and doing some things relating to publicity in Palmdale, where I grew up.
I used to be familiar with that because we would have, kids would come by the church or our program, and they need to find a project.
Right.
Inevitably, would be us building. More times than not, it was, let's create a ramp for somebody in town. A wheelchair ramp.
I'm on the board of an organization that works with Scouts up in Santa Rosa, and they've built benches for the center and done a number of things. It's been a favorite place for Eagle projects.
Yeah, benches. That's a big one, right? Those are always good.
Those are always good. What's the biggest challenge that you tend to face from the community or in the community?
Oh man, you mean as running the program here or in my life?
Let's do both.
Oh gosh, I was hoping you'd take the first one.
You get both.
I mean, I think more than not, we're always rubbing two nickels together to make it by, right? We're in the black all the time, but it's funding for a program like this. I spend more time doing programming than I do on fundraising, and I'm always grateful for donors who free me up so I can free us up so we can focus more on programming than anything else. So that tends to be a kind of a worry that goes with our work. I guess, but I also worry that I won't live long enough to see some of what we have come to fruition or perfection, I guess, especially in regards to our gait training. Mm-hmm. I think we've come up with a system that I think is a true game changer, but it needs to be perfected, and it needs to be something that we universally have out there that makes everybody improve their gait. And then this other thing, our big challenge is how do we train people, kids in schools with disabilities, where the resources they're underserved and those resources are slim, and they need to build habits that will stick with them after age 22. And so those are things that kind of gnaw at me that we just got to get it done, and I don't know how to do it on a broad scale. So
at the same time, what are some stories about people and how they have improved because of what you've done from an attitudinal standpoint? Because it must be for people who really internalize it, people who go through the program, whether it's just dealing with gait training or who are going off and playing sports. And we talked about winning and all that, but just playing should be a lot for people. But how have you truly helped people and their attitudes and their outlook on life really improve?
I can tell how they've helped me. That what the best part of this is we have a community that claims people for life. If you're part of this community, you're with us, and we'll never let you go. And so I am part of that as well. My friends, all my friends, and the closest people I have here are those with whom I work and the athletes in the program. So but you wanted something more specific. So as far as athletes go, I hear all the time people who say, you've shown us a different side to our son, or I'm so grateful. One guy wrote, he said, you helped us be brave with the wind. I love that one. I was teaching on Martha's Vineyard, and someone who just couldn't believe they were out in the water doing this. So I hear that kind of all the time, where people come to the program and they expect to do something. They've heard that people could kayak, and then we try to steer them to something that might be a little bit tougher, and that we know we can have success with. And then when we do that, they just can't believe it.
They're blown away. Yeah.
And so lots of people like that.
Which is tougher, windsurfing or kayaking?
Windsurfing.
That's.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say they're all as tough as you want to make them, and to go high level on something, but to get involved and independent, I think it's tougher. But it's also one we can have more success with. I'm not as huge a fan of kayaking as I am as the other sports. We do them, but the seating alone, because you're long sitting, it makes your posterior chain really tight. Your hamstrings, the thing, are tight, and it pulls your pelvis back, so you're kind of in a tough position, and people aren't necessarily as loose as they were if they could sit more upright.
Right. Well, and I don't know. I was going to say, I would think that there are probably more balance issues also with the board and interacting with the board with windsurfing than there are with kayaking. Right.
But we have all sorts of boards that we've designed where we can be very stable. And, we've had people on vents on our boards before because we were so confident they weren't going to fall in. So you can get as stable as you want, and then graduate to less and less stable as you go on. Less stable is faster usually.
Right. Well, for you and all that you've done, have you ever thought of writing this story, creating a book or anything like that to help educate more people about what you do and get them to realize that people with disabilities are just the same as everyone else? As I like to say, we need to change the definition, because disability does not mean lack of ability.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping I'd meet a bestseller author to foster. I did at one point, and then I think it's like an invention that gnaws at you. I gave up on it. And I'm not that gifted a writer. So, when I was in seminary, I took a course at Harvard, and it was on writing. And the teacher that the course was a friend of mine who was an editor at the Atlantic Monthly, Michael Curtis. And so over the course of 12 weeks, I had one sentence and one paragraph where he said, "Good job." But then again, I started writing a book, more to the point of what you're saying. I started writing a book about our experiences, and he loved it, which really just blew me away that I had gotten to the point where this guy would like it. But the process and to come up with stuff would be tough. I think people want you to, my advice was they wanted more personal stuff than I wanted to give. They want to know about the struggles and how it plays itself out in your marriage and things like that. And I wasn't going to go that deep into that. I mean, so, and they wanted a little bit of any controversy I could have as well, which I didn't have a ton of.
Yeah, everybody seems to like to have controversy, and that doesn't necessarily help. Although I think that the personal aspects, telling personal stories, can be done without jeopardizing individuals. But the stories and the accomplishments, I would think, would be very meaningful and make a book like that really be something people would value.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I haven't been that specific with the stories. I think I would be better if I had given you some stories of some of these folks. And I was just thinking that there was one guy who had a stroke, and he's probably in his late 40s, and came to a program, and he used to run. He was a middle distance runner, and we have been working with him on his gait, and we put him into our sports camp, and our Florida sports camp, and he started just blocking things, and by the end of the camp he was running for balls and even sending balls. He developed a pretty good kick, which was really remarkable. So he's planting with this almost straight leg, almost less a lot less functional than the right leg, and he was planning on that and kicking and shooting. And so by the end of the camp, he was just so surprised with himself and so grateful for this. Yeah.
Have you had people who you worked with who felt well enough about themselves and who could do it, who went off and maybe found a job or got a job or went back to working because they suddenly realized they could do that?
I wish that were true. But more times than not, it's such a tough nut to crack, right? We've had people go off. We have had people go off and get jobs, and then over time gave up the jobs because even as they wanted to work, the job was somewhat beneath their skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That before their accident or their injury, some of these people had pretty high level jobs, managers or writing code, and then the focus wasn't there after, and they were doing things that over time seem menial to them. We haven't had. I mean, we've had success in that people wanted to dream for that kind of thing, and people had more function, and they brought more to the relationships. But as far as jobs goes, haven't seen a lot of sustainable kind of improvement there. I'm sure you've seen the same thing, right?
Well, I see a lot of it. In the case of blindness specifically, or loss of vision, the fact is that for the most part, losing eyesight doesn't mean you can't go back and do what you were doing. There are so many people in so many different kinds of jobs that the proof is really there that you can go back to doing what you did. You've got to learn skills, but you can still do it. There are very few jobs where that really isn't the case. Unfortunately, there are all too many people who think it's not the case. And that's what makes the big difference.
Yeah,
it's still mindset.
And if you were in the workplace, I mean, I work with people, especially when we have kids on the autism spectrum. We'll work with people until, if they will keep coming, we will work with them until they succeed in some form. And I think that,
sure,
I wish that were the same in the workplaces too. That the upside for this population is so enormous. You wish you had that kind of patience in the workplace.
Well, it might be another dimension where you have to involve some other organizations or some other entities to make that happen. It isn't like you have to do it all, but by the same token, you at least start the process. So in the camp, in the program, obviously you want people to have fun. I've got to ask, because I always think about these things, where does humor fit into all this?
I'm humorless and always appropriate. It's
always one in every crowd.
No, I know. I guess I would say high affect, but rich affect kind of person, and always looking for the gleam in people's eyes, and always requiring that of all of the people that work for us, that they look for the gleam in people's eyes and connect.
Yeah.
And for me to do that, almost 9 times out of 10 takes humor. And on the border of appropriateness, whatever it takes to reach people, is part of it. So and we also don't like to take ourselves too seriously, and so you need humor to help people not take themselves too seriously, and to help people. In our program, there's no tragedy. No one comes in here or leaves this place thinking that their lives are tragic. No one allows anybody to feel like that. It's not overt, but it's just a kind of a sense you have. And part of that is just laughing at ourselves all the time. I kind of like the king of self-deprecation, and I'm fine with it. If people want to poke fun at me to laugh at them, to laugh a little bit at the situation, I love it. So
which gets us back to our whole issue of winning, right? You can be self-deprecating. You can have fun. and as you said, not take yourself too seriously. A little seriously, maybe, sort of, kind of, but not too seriously, which is really important. Well, I have to say to you, sir, contrary to what you believe and believed, it has now been an hour that we've been doing this, and you didn't think you had a story to tell.
Well, I had a story. I didn't know if it's going to be that interesting. So I'm glad we've made it. It's been very easy, and you're so engaging. It's great.
Well, thank you. Tell me about the name of the program, how people can reach out to you, learn more about the program, and of course, being prejudiced about these kinds of things, make donations to the program.
So we're AdccesSport America, and it's our website is AdccesSport America.
Sport America. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just two S's in it, but you go. Our website is goaccess.org, GOACCESS.org, and you can learn more about us there. And also, if you want to make a donation, you can as well. And we're primarily Boston-based or Northeast, based in Northeast. Although our programs for schools are becoming national, and we're hoping that we can expand that program and help people in different school systems with that system. And as far as our gate training go, glad to handle anybody who maybe want to come out in the area and work for a little while. Although that takes weeks and weeks if they need to have the wherewithal to do that. But if our device is manufacturable, that will be on our website in probably in about a year, and how to get that.
That'll be exciting. Yeah. And again, it's AdccesSport America, AdccesSport. ESSPORT. Yes. Well done. Cool. Well, and if people want to reach out to you, how do they do that? Do they best do that through LinkedIn, or
they can write me at ross@goaccess.org, ROSS@goaccess.org.
There you go. Well, Ross, Lilley, it has been absolutely fun, and I've learned a lot, and I am looking forward to somehow getting back that way from out here and getting a chance to meet you and shake your hand in person and go windsurfing.
We might do some clinics in California, and if we do, we will include
Now we're talking. Okay, well, that would be fun. And I'll bring my dog.
Yes, please. Of course.
Cat won't come. The dog will. I don't know whether he'll want to windsurf, but you never know. But I want to really thank you for being here today and being with us. I think this has been absolutely enjoyable, inspirational, and fun. And that's as good as it gets.
Thank you. Same here. I wish I had asked you more questions and learned more about you.
Well, see, now you have to start a podcast so you can do that.
For sure.
Well, I hope you've liked listening to us today. Please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at michaelhi@accessibe.com. Visit our podcast page, www.michaelhingson.com/podcast, where you can listen to the podcast, or as you may have found us elsewhere, that's okay too. Please give us a 5-star rating, like go to Apple and iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We really appreciate the ratings you give us and any comments and thoughts that you have. And Ross, for you and for everyone listening, if you know of anyone else that we ought to have on this podcast, please let us know. Reach out, let us know, or give us an introduction. I would appreciate it. We're always looking for interesting, new, and fun guests. So please let us know, and we'd love to hear from you about that. But again, Ross, thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here, and anything we can do to make the program successful, we want to do it. So thank you very much, and we will hopefully do this again, huh?
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh, yes.
Well, great. Well, thanks again, and we hope that you'll continue to listen to podcasts for us.
Thank you.